Alrighty, so thank you all for joining us today. Really appreciate it. I want to introduce myself, excuse me, for those of you who don't know me. So my name is Adrianna Samaniego, and I'm joined by my colleague,
Hi, I'm Emily Powers.
and we are investors at Female Founders Fund. One quick housekeeping note before we get started. Along the way, if you have questions, feel free to leverage the chat functionality. You should see it at the bottom of your screen, and we will get to them at the end of our presentation. Great, so let's dive in. Before we, let me get to this slide. And before we dive in, would love to give a quick overview of our fund. And so we are Female Founders Fund. We were established in 2014 by our founding partner, Anu Dougal, who's a former founder herself, really with one simple belief that women are going to build the technology companies of tomorrow and that we will back them. So we are a founder focused firm, and we are generalists leveraging a thematic approach, investing across consumer, healthcare, B2B, fintech at the seed stage. And I think that, we can all agree here that healthcare, in particular women's health, can no longer be described as a niche area of healthcare. And as a fund, we've seen immense opportunity for improvement in women's health through both technological and business model innovation. One of the early investments of our fund was in 2014, and that was Maven Clinic. And through this, we've become increasingly aware of both the need to create specific solutions for women's health and the opportunity to consumerize healthcare and put it in the hands of the user. And so after Maven, we've since invested in other category defining businesses in the healthcare space, including Shine, which is a self-care platform, Real, a platform for mental health targeting millennial women, and most recently, ULA, which is redefining how women experience pregnancy and delivery. Now, while there's been medical advancement for women's health, and I would say broadly targeting birth control and fertility options, not all areas of women's health have seen equal investment or innovation. And in particular, menopause falls into that category. Menopause is the confluence of two subjects, it's women's health and it's aging. And it's long been shrouded by cultural taboo. And so over the last 12 months as a fund, we've seen an increasing number of startups come across our desks targeting menopause, which is exciting. But what was really surprising is in our due diligence, we saw a surprising lack of information in terms of what consumers really wanted and were experiencing. And so we decided to conduct our own research in this space to gain a better understanding of the need of women during this life stage, their experiences, and the investment opportunities. So now I'm going to go into, before the research results, just set the stage for Femtech at large. And I'm gonna make this a little better. Okay, so let's get started. Women's health generally, I'll say again, has largely been underserved for many years, but we've seen some promising innovations and startups in the femtech industry. And I would say women have been seen as complicated due to our fluctuating hormones and often excluded from medical research and clinical trials. In fact, in 2018, only about half of drug trials in the US included women. And women are not just small men. For the exact same disease, we will experience the symptoms differently and oftentimes the treatments compared to men. And now, while it's morally shocking that women have been neglected in this manner, I think it's even more surprising, especially as investors from an economic standpoint. Women control not only their health, their decisions around healthcare, but also their families. And this is equivalent to $2 trillion of spend annually. In addition, when we're looking at menopause and the women in this life stage, they're at the peak of their careers. And on average, it's estimated that 20% of the workforce are experiencing menopause each year. And so that means that there's women, 20% of the workforce, that are potentially at work with not enough sleep, fatigue, an achy body, perhaps sweating profusely. And it's estimated that that's an equivalent of $150 billion of productivity loss. So there's no question that, women's healthcare is a really large opportunity. And as I mentioned, in recent years, we've seen quite a bit of innovation and startups focusing on this area of femtech. But 95%, as you can see in this market map, have focused on the reproductive years. And so only 5% of startups have been addressing menopause. Yet women's health doesn't end when menopause begins. And the really important note here is that 1.1 billion women around the world will be postmenopausal by 2025. So that's 12% of our population. And when we look at the startup landscape, and in particular the investment landscape, I want to call out a few things. So startups within Femtech have raised in 2019 alone, $498 million, according to PitchBook. And so that was in 2019, almost $500 million has been raised. And when we specifically look at the category, and that's the 95% of startups in reproductive health. But when we specifically look at the category of menopause, startups have raised $254 million, but that's since 2009. So over 10 years and $254 million. And to give you, a comparison, there's a company that many of us are aware of, HIMSS, as just one company that is targeting erectile dysfunction, among other male concerns. And they've nearly raised $160 million since their founding in 2007. Now, over the last few years, people have begun to take notice, which is really promising. We're seeing some telehealth solutions, as you can see in this market map, emerge, and other new players that we're going to shed light on later in our presentation. But one critical point is, not only there's only 5% of startups that are innovating in this space and not a lot of capital that's going into this space. One really critical point is that largely to date, most menopause solutions and brands are not speaking to the digitally native Gen X woman. And they're definitely not speaking to the millennial woman who's approaching perimenopause. In 2020, 68% of millennials are 30 plus. On average, the median age for a millennial is 32. And so there's a large subset of women that are approaching their 40s. And this is a tech savvy consumer that has really high expectations for brands and technological solutions that is not being thought of and is going to be sorely disappointed. And so overall, when you look at the market, this is a $600 billion market, and that does not include, the $150 billion that I mentioned earlier in productivity loss. And we really believe that menopause is the next innovation in femtech that is really long overdue. So who are we talking about? Now, I want you to meet Nancy. So Nancy is she's a compilation of who we talked to and who we heard from in our survey. She's the average of the responses. She's 55 years old. She gets a lot of her information for menopause from her friends and somebody named Marion Stewart, who's an online menopause consultant that her friends referred her to because she struggled to understand what was going on with her body and wasn't finding relief. She's also gotten information and support from her doctor, but felt like they were not well informed. She feels like she went into menopause fairly blindly and that she was hit with hot flashes, night sweats, trouble sleeping, and even mental health issues like depression, which she had never experienced in her life before. Now, between the doctor visits, the creams, supplements, Nancy has spent $10,000 in the last 5 years trying to find relief. And one of the products that she likes the most is Promnicil. It's a natural supplement that has been helping her with the night sweats and hot flashes. And she also uses a vaginal lubricant. Now, Nancy does not use hormones to date because she's been nervous about the potential negative health consequences, such as breast cancer and blood clots. And she hasn't seen adequate information to give her confidence to try hormone replacement therapy. Now, I'd like to also shed light that, that's Nancy. She's a compilation of the responses that we heard from, but there are a lot of people that we heard from, a lot of women, and we want to just call out a few quotes and it shed light on a couple other stories as to what we were hearing. So I'm going to read a few of these to you. Doctors brush you off and don't realize that not everything is menopausal, and it could be something serious. For example, I had a SCAD heart attack, but my warning signs, palpitation, exhaustion, sharp pains in my arms, dizziness, etc., were dismissed by my doctors as menopausal. I have the benefit of sisters and friends and a primary care physician that I'm comfortable talking to, but still, it was a mystery and challenge to know and manage such a wide range of symptoms. I felt alone and not believed about the severity of my symptoms. I was nearly suicidal for mood swings for 2 years, and I couldn't tell if the hormones were the cause. I needed information. I thought I was having a heart attack. No one told me that an irregular heartbeat could be due to menopause. Even the male cardiologist didn't say anything about it until I mentioned the recent hot flashes. Now, I needed information. I thought I was having, oh, I just read that one. Sorry about that. As you can see, through these voices and through these quotes, that women are having, serious effects on their daily lives that menopause is causing. And these are only a few of the comments that we heard. So to give you an overview and to get into the survey results now, um, we heard from, we conducted an anonymous survey, and we heard from over 250 women. And, in conducting this, we both did a qualitative and a thematic analysis because we had several open-ended questions. And our methodology was really, we wanted to be scrappy. And so we leveraged our internal teams, many of our mothers, in fact, including mine, to help us spread the word, friends, select LPs, our portfolio company, and also look to Facebook groups. And we actually learned rather quickly that most menopause Facebook support groups don't allow surveys and or advertisements. To give you a quick sense of the women that we surveyed, most of them on average were between the ages of 50 and 60 years old, and they identify as white. Now, the average age of onset menopause within the US is 51. And, any women between 40 and 50s will experience menopause. One really important note that we'd like to call out is the racial breakdown of our participants is not nearly representative of the world that we live in and the US population. And so though we had limited resources in doing this research, we absolutely strongly believe in the importance of having a better representation, especially for a topic that affects all women. And so if we were given the opportunity to do additional research, we would absolutely strive for a better representation in our respondents. So now let's get into what the women are experiencing and what we heard. So in regards to what we're experiencing, one of the most surprising pieces to me when I started to learn and get really passionate about this area is there are 34 total symptoms a woman can experience in menopause. Some women will experience no symptom at all, while others will experience mild to severe and multiple symptoms. And in terms of what women are experiencing, you can see in the chart to my right that the list of all of the symptoms that somebody can experience. And these can range from both physical, including, hot flashes, weight loss, weight gain, loss of libido, and then other effects like that are psychological, such as depression, anxiety, difficulty concentrating, and mood swings. And what we asked were, what are the symptoms that you're experiencing? How often are you experiencing these symptoms? And how is it affecting your daily life? The top 5 symptoms that women experienced and the respondents indicated were hot flashes, night sweats, sleep disorders, loss of libido, and mood swings. And as you can see, 78% of our respondents indicated that menopause interferes with their lives, and 23% told us that they indicated that menopause interfered with their lives either a great deal or was completely debilitating. Yet only 36% of the women in our survey indicated that they felt moderately or very prepared for menopause. And now most studies will show that 75% of women will experience one or more symptoms in menopause, yet they're not prepared for it. And menopause is nothing new. There's been women for generations who have been silently enduring this. And one thing that we know for certain about this, and we saw through our survey, was that the phases of menopause, the experiences of menopause vary widely individual to individual. And there's so many factors that play into this. It could be everything from, did you smoke, to how often you exercise, family history, also to the amount of stress that you're experiencing day to day will affect how you're experiencing menopause. Um, and one other really important note is that research shows one critical factor into how women are experiencing it and the variation is race and ethnicity. And studies show that Black and Latina women begin perimenopause earlier. They may experience more intense effects and also have a longer transitional period. And so personally, this was an area that, as a Latina myself, that I was surprised, and honestly it's a little scary. And so again, if we were to do additional research, we would want to understand this, and we encourage other people to look at this area if they were to do research as well, and to take careful note. And so with that, now what I'm going to do is I'll pass it off to my colleague, Emily, to share just how women are managing through their symptoms.
Great. Thanks so much, Adriana. As Adriana mentioned, the symptoms of menopause can be quite severe. The big question is, how do we treat those symptoms? There are currently two options: hormone therapy and diet and lifestyle modification. Hormone therapy is medication to replace the estrogen and progesterone levels that are reduced during menopause. On the other hand, holistic approaches to treatment include focusing on overall wellness practices and supplements to help ease the body's transition. Interestingly, nearly twice as many survey respondents indicated that they did or would not use hormone therapy for managing menopause. However, when we talked to The Cusp last week, a telehealth menopause startup, they told us that the majority of users come into their program seeking natural treatments, but then find that they need to use hormones. So Michelle Obama put out a podcast on menopause, which I highly recommend listening to, all of her episodes for that matter. And in it, she said, it was like someone put a furnace in my core and turned it on high, and then everything started melting. This is crazy. I can't do this. So Michelle Obama said that she can't do this. I haven't heard Michelle say that she can't do much. So it's really a testament to the severity of symptoms and the impact on life that some women face. For the record, Michelle takes hormones. And it seems that hormones are the heavy hitters, so to speak. And while women don't love the idea of taking them, many do take them in order to cope. Hormone replacement therapy is quite a controversial topic, and it's at the crux of menopause treatment. Am I using hormones? Yes or no? So we wanted to give you a little bit of history on the evolution of thinking around hormone replacement therapy. The use of hormones started in the 1960s and was very popular in the 1990s. During this period, the first clinical trials on postmenopausal women began, and in 2002, the first results of the Women's Health Initiative study showed that hormone replacement therapy had more detrimental effects than beneficial, at which use really dropped off. So these negative results received a lot of publicity and actually created panic among women, and doctors adjusted their guidance due to these results. However, there's been a reanalysis of that 2002 trial in following years, and newer studies have shown that the use of hormone replacement therapy in younger women has beneficial effects on the cardiovascular system. Ultimately, every woman has a different experience with menopause and comes to her doctor at a different stage in that menopausal journey. With the research to date, there's not a blanket answer that hormones are good or bad for every woman, as much as that simplicity would be helpful. Unfortunately, right now we're in a situation where doctors are not well informed and the general public is even less well informed. So this nuance around the importance of individualized care can be lost, and for that, women suffer. Women, their bodies, and their experience with hormones is complicated. Yet complication is not an excuse for neglect or an attempt at blanket solutions. So that was a lot on hormones. I'm now going to turn to some of the holistic approaches that women are trying. As mentioned, holistic approaches focus on lifestyle interventions to help make women healthier overall, such that they have a smoother hormonal transition. According to our survey respondents, the most successful holistic treatments include exercise, dietary changes, and supplementation. There were a range of supplements taken by survey participants, and they included black cohosh, maca, promensil, and 5-HTP, among others. So black cohosh, maca, and promensil all support hormone balance, and 5-HTP is used to treat depression. As I mentioned around hormones, the lack of information and unreliable information around menopause is one of the most concerning aspects of the market from our perspective. Nearly the same number of respondents get information and support from around menopause from friends as they do their doctors. And 32% of participants indicated that their healthcare providers are not knowledgeable or competent discussing menopause. Notably, 4 out of 5 OBGYNs, the doctors responsible for the reproductive system, receive 0 hours of menopause training. And this is just unacceptable. So women also really want community, with 71% of respondents indicating that they would benefit from one. In her podcast, Michelle says that cohorts matter with women. They've always mattered with me. Health for me, I enjoy it in community. While healthcare historically has been very focused on an individual's experience, like COVID, menopause is a collective experience, and with that comes increased empathy and a desire for connection. Another interesting facet of the consumer experience of menopause is advertising. Interestingly, only 41% of our survey respondents have seen ads for menopause products. We saw this in our own research as we spent a long time researching the space, yet received very little, if any, targeted advertisements for menopause products. After looking into this, we found that advertising is often difficult for femtech companies, as platforms such as Facebook block ads for menopausal products, deeming them to be too adult. While male-focused brands like Roman and Hims are able to run ads on Facebook for products that enhance male libido, there is a double standard. The menstrual cycle is so far from being pornographic, yet it's being censored as such. So I know this slide isn't super pretty, but it's an example of an ad for Hims, a product which Facebook allows to advertise. You can also see a post for a menopause support event that one user put up. And this post was censored. Although hard to read that red box at the bottom, Facebook said that it was censored because they don't promote adult products such as libido enhancing products, which they're so clearly allowing with that Hims ad. As you can see, there are biases and a huge information gap surrounding menopause. And I'll now hand it back to Adrianna to talk about some of the players looking to provide solutions in the space.
Thanks so much, Emily. Great. So let me just adjust myself. I think it's really clear that there is an opportunity to improve the user experience that a woman is going through in menopause. And that takes me back to that first or one of the earlier slides that I showed, which is that market map. And you showed, that 95% of companies have been targeting reproductive health, but there are beginning to be, or we're at the beginning stages of more companies that are targeting and emerging for menopause. And so I mentioned over the last 12 months or so, we've started to see more and more companies solving for this area. We've yet to make an investment in this area as a fund, but are actively looking, which gets me into some of the emerging players that we've seen. When we look at the categories, the first subcategory that I'd like to highlight is telehealth and medical platforms. So one of the most notable here that is the early player is Geneve. They were founded in 2015, and they are a telehealth solution providing menopause care. And they raised $4 million from Blue Run Ventures. And then, a competitor that has emerged in this area, or competitors include The Cusp, which was founded in 2018, and they've also raised a $4 million seed round. We also have Electra Health, Peppy Health, as well as Lisa Health, that is providing data-driven, science-backed insights and therapeutics for women going through menopause. So some promising solutions here. The second category is products. And so there's two companies that we'd like to highlight here. The first one is they're solving for hot flashes predominantly, which we shared that most women are experiencing, and that's Thermaband and Ember. And so they're providing a hardware device for temperature regulation. The other category or solution within this product category is companies that are targeting bladder leakage. And this includes companies such as Attention Grace, Lilybird, as well as Hazel. And then lastly, companies targeting intimate wellness products such as Joylux. And then the third category is supplements. And so the startups that we've seen and like to highlight are Kindara, Mighty, State of, and Womaness. And they're providing dietary supplements. Some of them are providing mists for hot flashes, as well as lubricants for vaginal dryness. In our mind, products and supplements are the easiest category for startups to emerge, and where we're seeing quite a bit of them emerge in. And as Emily shared earlier, a lot of women are seeking a natural remedy that leverages research to solve for some of the most felt symptoms, such as hot flashes, night sweats, loss of libido, and fatigue. Now, the last category, and it was said by Emily that 71% of women are looking for a community when they're in this live stage, is community. And so one of the companies that we haven't seen quite a bit emerge that are really targeting and centering their solution around a community is Caria, also known as Chorus Health. They were founded in 2019, and they offer a community of support as well as expert-backed resources, and recently, symptom tracking and analytics to help women understand what's going on. One really important fact here is that 93% of women are interested in non-invasive tech solutions to help them, navigate menopause, track their symptoms, and they also want, many of them, a non-hormonal supplement. And we really think that one of the next waves within this category of startups is going to have a more personalized approach that is research backed as well, because it varies in terms of the symptoms that you're experiencing one woman to the other. Another area where we're seeing more research and that is fairly novel is phytoestrogens that are found in plants, and how they mimic estrogen in the body. And so very early, but another area that we're seeing. And then lastly, that paired with the right brand, because I mentioned that a lot of people feel like the brands that have existed today are my mother's menopause brands, is as one participant put it. And so a brand that speaks to women that are approaching and experiencing menopause today around a verticalized community that is offering support. So now going into the opportunity, last but not least, I do not want to cover Michelle's face, so I'm just going to go up right here. There's really, no question that this is absolutely a large opportunity here that cannot be questioned one bit. And so on average, women spend $20,000 in trial and error, whether it be prescriptions, doctor visits, treatments, devices, and other products during this time, trying to find relief. And menopause will affect every woman at some point. We know this. That's biology. And this is, a $600 billion opportunity here that is still largely untapped. I mentioned it earlier, but 1.1 billion women around the world will be postmenopausal by 2025. That's 12% of our population. One of the key takeaways, the next one, is the fact that there still exists a very large information gap. Women often, they don't know when or if they're in menopause. They don't know how to get care, and there's little research around what are the solutions that are best for them. And there is a clear divide, as Emily, you referenced earlier, among women who are using hormones and those of natural alternatives. And so there's definitely not a leader that we have seen in the natural supplement category. And there's clearly a lack of science and clinical research it was clear that, estrogen therapy has been highly effective for some women. And that was the chosen treatment until 2002. And then, after the study was released, a lot of women stopped that cold turkey. And so consequently, there's been a burgeoning interest of people wanting a botanical product paired with just other alternative remedies. And so there's clear need for future research that is going to identify new and effective strategies that are not going to have negative side effects, and there's going to be confidence that these are safe for people to use and treat symptoms of menopause. And then lastly, there's within this information gap, there's a need for updated information and research around reproductive aging, especially within diverse populations. I said it earlier, there's just not enough information as to how it's affecting women of color, and we need to do a better job of understanding that. And then lastly, how research has really lacked in regards to understanding the effects of women in their early or mid reproductive years. I think if there's a solution or something that women can do earlier, I think to myself that I would like to know what that is so I could be better prepared to undergo this life stage in menopause. And so we really hope that the medical community takes note of this, because we believe that there's quite a bit of opportunity for innovation within startups, but it has to be startups innovating and founders finding solutions that are paired and backed by medical research. And then, the third takeaway here is the fact that 4 out of 5 OBGYNs are not trained in menopause. Providers are not adequately supporting women in menopause. And we heard it really clearly through our survey. Many of the women aren't understanding where to turn. They're looking to their friends for advice and information. Though they want a community, they want to navigate this with their friends and that community, but also with doctors and doctors who are better trained to support them. Too many women in our survey, experienced either being ignored or that their symptoms were being tagged or described as menopausal, and it later led to really scary health scares for them. And then lastly, the menopause tech revolution is here. We believe it's the next fertility. Only 5% of startups are focusing on menopause. We're seeing it grow. A majority of them are focused on consumer products, but we are seeing some new incumbents that are building telehealth solutions and even a combination approach. And so there's still a tremendous opportunity and need for innovation here. Now I'd like to go into the fact that we're really grateful that all of you made time for us today to go through these results. I think we learned a great deal in this study, and we are really nearing the end of the information age. Yet somehow a condition that affects half of the population is being neglected. And so there's not enough data, support, innovation, or treatments. And I think we could all agree that women deserve better. And so we remain really optimistic about the opportunity for innovation to drive impact through technology, and are looking for the right founder the right founder and the right solution to back. And so again, thank you all for joining us. And so now what I'd like to do is go into our Q&A section. So one moment. Actually, I'm just gonna go really large. So we already have a few questions here. Let's start at the beginning. All right, so what is the most anonymous? What is the most surprising thing that you've learned from the study that you didn't expect? Em, you want to take that one?
Yeah, sure. So for me, it was really just this lack of medical progress and uninformed doctors. Again, I know we've mentioned this many times, but the 80% of OBGYNs that don't receive menopause training, that's insane. And there's really only so much that can be done on the consumer front. We really need medical progress in this space.
Thank you. Next question, will we be providing a link to the presentation? Yes, I believe we have all of your emails, and so we will be following up with our research report, which is expanded and touches upon everything that we shared today. The next, can you please repeat the number of women who undergo, oh yes, so 12% of the population. I think the really big stat was 1.1 billion women will be postmenopausal by 2025, so just in a few years. Next question, what are promising solutions and startups that your team is most excited about? Great question, really great question. I'd say, it's really clear to us that menopause is not monolithic. The fact that reactions vary so widely across every woman, and take into consideration cultures, lifestyle, family history, etc. And so we what excites us is the personalized approach. And so companies that can really personalize the treatments based on how somebody is experiencing this and going through this is going to be somebody who could potentially win in this market. And we also think that that paired with a community, we've yet to find the perfect company, but we're excited about that. And I think that there's still, again, a lot of research in this space that needs to happen. May have missed the end. Okay, so I believe your question is 250 people in terms of the total number of respondents. Next question from Maddie. Are there particular diagnostics products for menopause that you can think would be clinically effective? And perhaps we can tag team on this, Emily. I think one of the interesting approaches that we're seeing, we recently backed a company within, well, actually, I can't say, but we believe that there's one of the interesting areas is going to be in this personalized approach. And so I know the Cusp is taking an approach where they're doing at-home diagnostics to really understand your hormone levels and what's happening, because my hormone levels are going to vary. I'm going to approach it at a different point than other individuals. And so I think that is one way that people are approaching the diagnostics piece. I don't, Em, if you want to add anything to that.
Yeah, I would echo that. One of the interesting things about menopause is just how quickly your hormone levels change, and the need to be constantly monitoring that is really important, such that you can either adjust your hormone therapy regimen or natural supplements to make sure you're having the best experience.
So curious about the qualitative racial ethnic differences among respondents, given the research you mentioned. Did you, oh, it went away really quickly. Sorry, I didn't get the end of that. Did anyone, let me see if we wrote it down. I think, so I know that was Markia's question, and that is one of the founders that I mentioned of Thermoband here. And so, there was, unfortunately, there were some differences, but statistically it's hard to drive the takeaways because it was a small subset of our data. As I mentioned, I think definitely an area of improvement in regards to like that next study is getting a better representation. So it wasn't anything that we could clearly draw in terms of a statistical difference as it related to racial breakdown. But again, I think it's a huge area where we need to pay attention to, and more research needs to be done, both on the clinical and medical research. All right. Em, do you want to take the next one? What are you looking for in a company in this space?
Yeah, sure. So ultimately, we're looking for the same thing that we would look for in any of our investments. We know that the market is here. It's clearly 600 billion plus. So it comes down to our conviction in the founding team and a product that really speaks to the needs and wants of the user.
And we're getting another comment. Thank you so much, Emily. Another comment here is from a founder herself who has seen the ad censorship in regards to ads stating hot flashes for their business. And so clearly, again, an opportunity for us to improve upon. Around ad censorship, how have you seen companies, potentially female founders, portfolio companies focused on femtech navigate this? Are they promoting ads outside of Facebook? I think I don't have like a particular answer for you, Marquia, in terms of a specific company that's coming to mind. Unfortunately, I think I'm not actually sure if like a Maven Clinic. I know Shine advertises on Instagram and hasn't seen any resistance there, but nothing that is coming to mind. That being said, within the healthcare bets that we've made specifically within women's health, they have not targeted some of these areas around menopause, and so likely haven't seen that same level of difficulty. We do have a company who is early and they're not advertising within sexual wellness, comma. And so, that's potentially something that we're keeping in mind and they may have to navigate at some point. And so just as a reminder, we will send the deck to everyone. All right. Did I miss any questions? Okay, sorry. There's quite a bit. Okay. What support, guidance, help do we give to startups? Thank you, Val. So generally, there's two ways. If for startups within our portfolio, I would describe us as really hands-on. Especially, we are early stage investors, and so depending where that company is in their journey, we will roll our sleeves up. We meet on a monthly basis, and then are really looking to get them to that next round of financing. And then largely, we have a community, a really large community that we're very proud of in terms of an ecosystem of operators and female founders. And we hold monthly events. We've now been doing them virtual. So we have a reimagining series going on. Highly recommend that you look at that. We'll have a couple of those. We just had one around mental health. So look at that. We do office hours, but if there's anything in particular, the last thing I'll call out in terms of resources that we have a resource center on our website that I really encourage. I think it's underrated, but we have quite, in terms of not a lot of people see it, but quite a bit of resources on there for startup founders. And then always, if you want to reach out to us on Twitter, Instagram, or hello at female founders, please send us an email. And there's some very specific ones that I don't think I will read because we can get back. You can email us these. Now, Emily, you want to take a look if we're missing any? Okay, did you come across, we have one of our portfolio founders here. Hi, Mariah. Did you come across any epigenetics information related to menopause in your research? Emily, anything that you
I haven't seen anything. No, not saying it's not out there. Just in our research, haven't seen anything.
There's people are sharing stories on here, which is really eye-opening in terms of their what they've experienced personally, and I really appreciate you sharing these. And okay, so I have been researching this area for a while and I'm interested in developing a natural supplement. However, it's quite expensive. What are your suggestions dealing with cost up front when you have to develop a product before you can seek funding? I think this is a really challenging question, but there's an opportunity for you to partner with the medical community in terms of their, is not a lot of research in this area. And so partnering to get a study underway that is, backed by a grant of some sort. I know that AARP has been looking at this and they're a nonprofit organization. And so potentially contacting them, they actually have an innovation department that is looking for, founders within this area. So that's one way. And then of course, if you are able to get enough research together and formulate a thesis around the ingredients for the supplement, and I think you could pitch that for venture funding to get the development underway. Lots of I want to connect and other great questions in here. Alrighty, let's see. I'm going to keep going. How did you, Emily, would you like to answer this? Somebody's asking how we calculated the $600 billion.
Yeah, you can absolutely. So on average, women spend $20,000 on ad hoc treatments, medical treatments, supplement over the lifespan that they're treating menopause. And we use the market size of 1 billion women. And we've seen a few other publications as well. I believe Forbes put out a study coming to similar numbers as we did.
Perfect. I think this is the next question is, how would you recommend companies try to balance speaking to older millennials who are approaching menopause versus older generations in their 50s who are experiencing it now? I think this is a really interesting question, and one that I've thought about personally. The fact that, there are quite a bit of millennials who are between the 35 to 38, and some women will experience menopause during that time. And I would say, I have not come across a brand that is currently speaking to that audience. And so I do think that there's quite a bit of opportunity. I would say the balance is trying to understand and survey those millennial women as to what their preconceptions or conceptions are of what menopause is. I've had the privilege of researching this, and it's been quite eye-opening. The balance is the fact that many of the women in their 50s have been struggling to find, based off of our research, these symptoms, and have been managing it, and are nearing, the end of their symptoms. And so I think it's you have to maybe pick and or do a little bit more research. But I would say it is going to be the challenge that many startups face. And in particular, I don't think most people are thinking about. Given the need for medical research and how long that it will take, how do you think about the time horizon of making an investment in this space? I think we were very honest with the areas of opportunities in this space, but we also remain optimistic. And the fact that we've seen more startups in the last 12 months across our desk that are focusing on one variation of this problem, I think that there is, medical research does take quite a bit of time, but there's an opportunity to speed that process up. If we've learned anything in the last 6 to 8 months, is we can move faster in terms of the example of getting a vaccine, and we can put pressure where needed. And so I think if we, as a collective, as the attendees here, it can't just be in a silo. If we can bring more attention to this problem that affects half of the population, that we could move faster. But that being said, if you can build a community, and if you're showing value, if you're building value for women via a solution or some sort of technology, you will have a business that will thrive, because it is quite a green space. All right, let's see. What platform did you use to survey your work? So we were really scrappy. As a former Googler, I used Google surveys, actually, Google Forms. So we tried to be really quick and thoughtful about our survey design. It was it was under 30 questions, and we used Excel to do the overall qualitative and quantitative analysis. But we actually didn't use anything too fancy. Did you get the sense that any large pharma or supplement businesses are investing or interested in this area? Anything on your side, Emily, that's coming to mind?
Nothing coming to mind from the large company standpoint, no.
Yeah, same here. Nothing on my end. Do you think there's current evidence that supports, where did that question go? I keep losing questions, sorry. Or there, I lost it. Apologies. How did you identify and target the audience? Again, our methodology was pretty scrappy in that we leveraged our own network of founders, select limited partners, including our friends and families. Emily and I have to shout out our mothers for helping us send the survey. And then we also individually targeted Facebook groups in the menopause community. Have you seen doctors push back on using technology? How would you recommend getting doctors on board if so? Do you want to tag team on that one, Emily?
Yeah, sure. I would say that a handful of the companies that we have seen are in the telehealth space, which inherently works with doctors. So would say I'd seen doctors being supportive versus pushing back on technology in that aspect.
Yep. And I think one idea that we saw within this area is one of the telehealth solutions, one of the startups is targeting on building a training program, a secondary training program to better prepare doctors, because it's unacceptable that 80% of OBGYNs are not trained in this area. Great question. So did your research provide any insights on willingness to pay for platforms that include a mix of care, community education? We actually didn't touch upon the willingness to pay. We did see, on the advertisements, we saw that a majority of the advertisements that people did see were on television, which I thought was quite surprising. And then most people said that they would be willing to buy over the counter. So they would go into a CVS, a Target to purchase, and they would feel comfortable, but we didn't ask on price points. I'm still reading a few of these questions. Thank you guys for staying with us this entire time. Okay, the Thermoband. Let's see. As a co-founder and startup of a product and community addressing menopausal symptoms, how do we share our information with your company and fund for information? Great question. And for anyone who is a startup founder, please email us at pitches@Female Founders Fund. Also, you can engage with us on any social platform as well. What was your understanding of how interviewed women want to address the issue, the medical practitioner versus non-medical back solutions? So for me, I would say the first front line was the medical practitioners. And I think most women felt pretty disappointed where they ended up. Either it was dismissed as you're going through menopause, it's just something that you need to deal with, and then looked for non-medical back solutions. Anything to add on that, Emily?
No, yeah, I would echo that. I think having the network of friends and community support was in some degree a reaction to the lack of support from the medical community.
Great. And a lot of thank yous. And again, we're really grateful that all of you stayed with us this time and took your Friday to listen. The last thing I'll say is if we didn't answer your question, feel free to engage with us on social, email us at hello@Female Founders Fund. And thank you again for doing this, spending your time with us, and highly encourage you to share this conversation. It doesn't stop here. We're really optimistic about the opportunities in this area and enjoyed doing this research. Anything else, Em?
No, thank everyone. It's been great speaking with all of you, and so happy that we had the opportunity to do this research.
Great. Happy Friday, and stay safe, everyone. Thank you.